Welcome to today's video. We are actually going to be teaching a hair school class right now. So we are getting ready to leave and I wanted to show you guys the process of what a class like this looks like. So if you are in beauty school or you're a beauty school teacher or you're interested in us having a class at your school, let us know. We would love to come do it. So we are going to be doing a color transformation. I'm gonna show you our model. Look at her. So Alexa at one time had all black hair. And then we did one session going lighter and she actually lifted really, really well, but it's been a few months, so it's growing out. So we're gonna teach the students how to refresh something like this by working smarter, not harder. Woo. You ready?
Yep.
She's gonna be the stew.
Ready? I've wanted to be stew my whole life.
Brightening up that front hairline and then also underneath so that she never feels like she has a shadow box. We're still adding a few foils underneath even if it's not a full head. So Stu's gonna be doing the back halo, I'm gonna do the front. We'll kind of show you guys both and then we're gonna start working on the interior of the hair. Depending on the client is how many foils we'll put in the halo. If they have really thick, dense hair, it's gonna be probably less foils, and then the thinner hair you may do a little more just depending on how you want the placement to be and how the color's gonna look. And I love that a lot of you said placement because that's huge. I feel like we always get the question of like, what toner did you use on this client? What's the formula? What's the placement? And it's really hard to answer that because every client's unique. So placement's gonna be different for everyone. Your toner's gonna be different. Your formula's gonna be different. It's all about what that individual client needs. So the placement is gonna be different for her than it may be for another client, but you can kind of gain inspiration by this.
Alright, so I sectioned off in this little section right here. This is kind of the halo that Jessica was talking about. Basically, whenever I'm doing this, I'm just picturing like if she was to pull her hair out, where are those like highlights going to be? It's called the dead zone, from like the back of the ear to the back of the ear. If you keep this like uncolored, untouched, and let it grow, their hair is going to feel a lot thicker.
The interior of the hair, we're going to do more teasy lights so that it looks more natural. I think one of you said you like to balayage, so this is going to be a balayage, but it's done in foils, which is kind of like what we tend to do the most because it looks a little more natural and lifted when you can place it in a foil, get that incubation of heat, and get a little more lift out of it, whereas with open air painting, it's a little bit harder. You're putting your brush with the most product on the mids, and you're really getting it in right there, and then you can saturate down, and I kind of do like a base coat where I'm doing all of it initially like this, so everything's getting touched, but that's not enough. So what I'm gonna do is then feather up with the extra product right here. So I'm not putting all of that product near the base of the foil because then if you do get swelling, that's gonna cause the tiger stripes and it's gonna cause issues. And then I'm kind of going through and instead of grabbing more product, if you feel like you already have too much, to help saturate, what you can do is kind of X as you go like this and move the product around because sometimes you don't need more product, you just need to spread it better. So you can kind of keep that same thing in mind wherever you're looking at the product like this and really work it in because saturation is not just about the product, it's the pressure you're applying it with. Okay, do a highlight just like I did around the face, but with these ones I'm going to do them a little bit closer together since it is that fringe area and I want it to really stand out. And I'm still using that 7 volume right here. I like to use a smaller brush around the hairline for these foils because I feel like it gives me a little more control and I can get in there and do that detailed work. And then when I get to the interior of the hair, I usually switch over to a bigger brush. And then I'm just gonna follow that shape and do the same thing again, stacking those highlights back to back pretty close. And when you're doing placement, especially on a brunette that you're taking lighter like this, you really want to envision where these pieces are going to go because they are more contrasted. And you want to visualize what it's going to look like, where would the sun naturally hit her hair, that's what we're trying to mimic. And it's kind of just about envisioning that and then placing those foils where you think the client needs it. It's not always about like a uniform placement since it's so unique. Okay, I'm gonna do a third foil, the same width back to back, and then as I get further back, I'm gonna start spacing them out a little bit more so that it brings more of that natural base color in and it blends efficiently. Depends on the client and the density of their hair. With her, I'll probably do 6 foils right here. So I did the 3 really close together. So those first 3 almost are gonna look like a slice because they're so close. But then now as I'm working my way back into the interior, I'm spacing out a teeny bit more so that we're bringing more of that natural color in. So that way it's not gonna look like a stripe and then her dark hair, it's gonna be a natural progression. And I sometimes will do slices in the front, but if it's someone who wants like a low maintenance color, I feel like doing highlights is a little better because they're gonna grow out a little softer, whereas with slices back to back, it's gonna grow out a little more harsh. So if it's a blonde client that just wants to be super blonde and they come every 6 to 8 weeks, you can totally do that. But on someone like her, we only do her color like every 3 to 4 months, so I don't wanna give her something that's not gonna look great in 6 to 8 weeks. I want it to, you know, stand the test of time so she can go a little bit longer. And I'm still gonna use that 7 volume. And another reason to use that 7 volume is you can see that her ends are pre-lightened because we did it 3 to 4 months ago. So I don't want to use anything harsh on those. This 7 volume is going to lift a little bit slower and it's going to give us more of a gentle lift. And then we can decide when to take it off based on how it's lifting. And it's just going to ensure that her hair stays really healthy. Also, if you're ever worried about that, you can use Olaplex or a bonding agent. Blondie has it built in, so it's kind of nice because all of your clients get that added benefit by using that lightener. But doing stuff like that's really important when taking a client lighter because it does help protect the hair as you go. I'm not really like folding my foils perfectly as I go. I'm basically just doing the main folding that we do at the beginning. Then once that whole section's done, I'm gonna take my comb and I'm gonna bend them together where I want them to be folded, and then that way I can move on to the next section and they're not in the way. And then I'm kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone because I'm doing that step all together instead of taking the time to individually fold each foil. I feel like a lot of us hairdressers get really OCD, like the foils have to be perfect, but I feel like this is still a really good way to keep it clean and then not waste the time per foil. I feel like the cool thing about our industry is there's so many options. You can be behind the chair, you can be a teacher, you can work with brands, you can open a salon, you can do products. So it's really cool that you're getting this education, but you can do so many different things with it. Now that we've done her hair once and I know how it lifts, I can now feel comfortable going in with highlights and adding a little more in. So my first session is always that, and then we can do more from there. Kind of like what I'm doing right now, I'll do them again on this side, but where you back comb and tease the hair. And the purpose of that is when you're teasing away hair, it's gonna be adding dimension in. So the more I tease away, it's gonna come back down and it's gonna give me depth. The less I tease away, it's gonna be less depth coming back down, so it'll be brighter. So we're doing that. It's kind of like what I did in the dropout down here, and we're gonna be doing that throughout our section so you guys can see. And it kind of gives you the look of like a balayage, a foliage. It's, you know, it's not a highlight, it's gonna be giving you more of that like lived-in appearance. The cool thing about extensions and being able to offer that service along with color is that you can a lot of times go through and add pops of brightness with the hair. Darker haired clients are scared to be blonde, right? And blonde's not for everyone. I can't be blonde, but it's all about finding the right tone of blonde for that skin type. And with Alexa, she was so dark for so many years that she didn't think this was a possibility. What we're gonna do is let her process, and then we're gonna rinse her, and we'll show you guys like the whole toning process, how we like to do that. Go tone because she lifted so well. We don't want to do any ashes because it'll go muddy. And then on her ends, we're gonna do a combination of things. We're gonna do 7P, 8V, 9GI, 8GI, 8N. So the N is our neutral, so that's gonna give us a neutral base. 8V is gonna counteract any yellow tones. She has a little bit. The P is gonna help counteract any blue tones, but she has a teeny bit in the banding area. So these are our cool ash tones. And then the GI is a gold iridescence, and it's gonna help kind of add in the good warmth that we talked about, and it's gonna help it kind of look a little more vibrant and have light reflect through it. Yeah, it's a very soft color, but it almost just helps it so if you're putting ash in, it doesn't go too ashy.
Okay, I see.
Yep. And And then when you are doing this at the bowl or at the chair, we're always gonna start with the base color, and then we're gonna do the mids to ends after. And we always wanna part where the client naturally parts their hair so that we're going off of that, and you kind of just follow the same highlighting pattern that you did, and that's gonna help with where you're gonna place it. We have that conditioner on mids to ends, and we're gonna go around the perimeter, and I'm gonna give the hair some tension so that we're gonna pull tension, and I know exactly where I wanna place this. And it's kind of like you're doing placement with foils, but you really have to think about placement with something like this at the same time. So I like to go like this, and I'm gonna shadow under here, and then I'm gonna kind of go around that perimeter, and then we're gonna work in the interior. That way you're not missing anything. I think I see a lot of like underneaths not getting toned, especially when I was first starting. I feel like I did that all the time where like the underneath was still yellow because you like forget that part, especially if they're just leaning back. So this is just gonna ensure that we're getting every single section. And then as soon as that perimeter's done, we're gonna take it section by section, and we kind of just follow the shape of the head. And we're gonna be basing her, and we just kind of like drag it down to where it meets the highlight. And that's where we're gonna start creating that blend and placing it where we want it to be. And a lot of times with brunettes, we end up doing like a teardrop shape where it gets a little bit lower in the back and then higher up in the front. And we kind of touched on that a little bit with foil placement and where you're putting your product and everything. And it's gonna be the same idea when it comes to this. And then we like to kind of comb out as we go, just to ensure everything's blending really well and nothing's getting missed and everything's saturated. You have to be careful that it doesn't drip down because we've talked about that and what it will do. And then also, even though you have that Olaplex or that conditioner on as a barrier, you still want to be like mindful of where it's going. And with this, it's all about saturation and working it through. So you're gonna see us like massaging it in.
I'm gonna grab some.
Yeah, I will. Massaging it
Saturation.
in. Yeah,
Saturation.
saturation's key. Enough product.
Glad you got that.
I did get it. And then also like the finger motions we're doing. This is what's gonna work everything together so it's a nice soft blend. And especially in this interior, this is like that area that we didn't really touch. And then because of that, we're just like refreshing the toner, but then the highlights that we did are gonna take it a lot quicker, so we just have to make sure that we're watching those. If you ever have a client that has banding like we talked about, I thought she was actually gonna have worse banding than she did.
Ooh, got it on you now.
Dang it. Buying me a new outfit. So if they had banding where it was like they lifted well and then it's warm and then it's, you know, lighter at the ends, that's when we get into color corrections and lifting dark hair. You're gonna see it a lot. Multi-toning is how you're gonna kind of kill that and make it blend.
Thank y'all so much.
Let us know. Let's go to Carrabba's.